Welcome to another episode of In the Nude. Today I want to talk about prioritizing your inner voice over your parent's voice or your inner critic. First off, let's just breathe, because that's a lot. One, if you identify the fact and can see the way that your brain attacks you isn't fully actually you, isn't the you, the encasing the full real you, that's beautiful. That's amazing. That isn't something that everybody sees. That isn't something everybody notices. I hope you sit with yourself and are aware of the beauty of the fact that you were able to see that you were able to be aware enough to see the difference between how your brain attacks itself, right? That's a fantastic truth that you were able to see. So let's break down what that is, how it functions and works into your life. Okay. The last podcast episode is all about feelings, and feelings like you're in a casket, like, right? Like the feelings, it's terrifying having feelings because it feels like they're never going to go away. Where does that come from? It comes from not having been able to express them, right? It comes from stop crying, smile, being told that your feelings don't matter, being told that in order to gain affection, consideration, protection, relation, behave how I want you to. Present the face I desire. Right? So we're learned from a very young age that those feelings, our opinions, who we are, doesn't matter. In the face of who did matter. Our parents. We wanted affection, we wanted love, we wanted safety, it's built into our person. That is a desire innate to a human, to a child to survive. It is built in. So when your parents would tell you, stop crying, smile, shh, it was telling you, suppress, push away. What you're feeling doesn't matter in comparison to what I think things should look like right now. We learn this suppression, push aside, and we prioritize their voice for that affection, for that love, for that connection we desperately needed. And we perpetuated both that truth that they're the things that they're saying and we're hearing and we're taking in. Their voice is super important for our protection, our safety, our affection, our ability to be loved, our worth, all of that. But also building in this pattern of pushing aside and pressing down because we had this fear of safety. If we felt the feeling, what would come next? Punishment, consequence, safety lack, lack of affection, all of that, right? It's built in to this like crazy cocktail of chaos that feelings can feel like. It's all connected. The understanding and pulling back to see the perspective, it affects it all, right? Like, okay, so say for example, someone's telling you a story, right? In the news, right? You know that if you go on a particular news station, you're going to get a particular perspective. Everything's going to be said in a way that lights, highlights, and like obfuscates details, information for that perspective. No matter what station you're going to, each one has a perspective. When someone's telling a story and there's an argument and you have two people telling the two different sides, you know each side is going to be telling it from their perspective, leaving out the things that make them look worse, giving more details that make them look better. Like that's human nature, right? That's all that's happening with this deconstruction of thought process within yourself with healing. It is so interesting and fun, right? That's what this is. It's fun. It may not feel great. And by may not feel great, I mean, most of the time doesn't feel great, but something to note, something to feel, something to like harness is that we can have this thought process that it was better before when we weren't aware, right? That it's harder now. I want to give some truth that won't make it easier to face what you're doing, but relief to that feeling when it comes up. In the past, when you were living your life, unaware of the full impact of what you were doing to yourself, of what the environment was doing to yourself, of how you were bending till you were breaking, the cost of doing it still existed within you, right? It's like a shadow, right? Your shadow, whether you're paying attention to it or not, is always there. It doesn't leave, right? The only way it leaves is if there's direct, complete sun on all sides of you. That's the only way there's no shadow. Feelings exist within you whether or not you deal with them. Whether you push them into the corner, they just start decomposing there. And there is effects. There is ramifications to that on your person. Point in case, how your life eventually and how you eventually broke and fell apart and got to the place where you're doing this. It is important, this process of the feelings and the decompressing and all that, to get to what you want, right? What you've always wanted. To feel lovable, to feel loved, to thrive. It's what you've wanted. You've wanted peace, you've wanted thrive, you've wanted affection, you've wanted... And I'm sorry that you haven't had it. I'm sorry you weren't given it. But we're making it for ourselves now, okay? So this process of learning how to prioritize our inner voice over a critic, it's not one that someone can just tell you. If it could, I would love to give you a math problem. 1 + 2 + 3 = 6. It would be beautiful and fantastic, and we wouldn't have the news being like it is if that was how it was, right? Like if it was that simple, enough people would be able to eat the cookies and do the thing, right? If it was just a recipe, we'd have enough pretty halfway decent cookies because they all followed the recipe, right? Their flour may be slightly rancid or whatever, but you get the drift. If it was that simple, there'd be a lot more people showcasing that life. So what is it I can say? What is it that I can give? Since I can't give you do this and then do this, I can give you base truths. That critic that's in your head, that sounds like your parents, why do you think it was there? Why do you think it exists? Yes, of course, because they said it, right? But why did you receive it? Why did you take it into your person? Because that part of you was trying to protect you and still is. It's parroting. It's parenting also in its way that it's mimicking your parents. Trying to get you to be in a place where you can be lovable because they think that your parents' words are true. They think that this is the constraint because it was the constraint. This part of you isn't one that needs to be shamed, isn't one that needs to be labeled as bad, isn't one that needs to be denigrated to. It's a part of you that needs to be loved because it's never been loved. You shaming yourself or being angry at yourself or denigrating yourself because you have a person who's denigrating you inside yourself is kind of perpetuating the same cycle. You treat yourself poorly in your brain because being treated poorly is your norm. Being treated poorly is your safety. Even if you don't like it, it's what your body knows, and it is the default. And our bodies crave default. They crave known. And so we bully ourselves and tear apart ourselves and denigrate ourselves because that is what is known. And then on top of that, it is all so the Venn diagram, the profile, the cookie cutter that we have been told and believed because we needed to believe it because it was linked to our safety and linked to the affection we could gain by respecting those viewpoints and accepting those viewpoints. They're trying to protect you. Rejecting it, being frustrated at it is fair, but it doesn't actually get you the end that you need. What does? Congratulating yourself on being able to see that it's not fully you. That it's just a facet. But that facet of you, it wants love just as much as you do. The biggest gift I can ever give you is that the best way for you to experience the most amazing life you could ever have is learn how to be the first person to show up for you. I'm sorry, somebody else hasn't. That's reprehensible. But you're worth doing that work, doing this work, getting uncomfortable and sitting with yourself, hearing that inner critic and coming to the table remembering the same truth you know about other people. When somebody else is throwing daggers, throwing shade, in order for them to have the shade to throw at you or throw at someone else, they have to be standing in the thick of it. No one who feels great about their person and is feeling great about their person is throwing shade at another person. If they are feeling great about themselves, they compliment. They give out love and care, regard and respect. When someone is feeling bad about themselves, they're stepping and denigrating and pushing down other people because that's how they can feel like they might be a little bit better. They can't be as good as they want to be. They can't be what they think they should be, but they can be better than that because they need to feel better than that because they still feel like garbage. And there's a part of you that's in that place because someone has continuously made it feel like garbage. The more that you can spend time giving yourself compassion, what does that look like, okay? I'm going to give you practical ways that I deal with myself, okay? None of them are going to be perfect. None of them are going to be pretty. It's just what I've worked at. Sometimes I'm not in a place to be able to handle my feelings, right? I'm reaching for dopamine like it's a friggin' tic-tac, just shove it in one after the other, basically clicking a pen while I flick past another video after another video after another video because I'm trying so desperately to outrun the shadow that's attached to my feet. And it's a futile attempt, and we know it's a futile attempt, but we still do it because it's default and because it feels like it's going to be drowning to turn and face the shadow. Even though we know if we just turn and face the shadow, we flick on the light, we embrace the shadow fully, and it dissipates because there's light, right? We know it, but it's still scary, and it's okay to be scary. We lived in a trench dug by our parents, by their scars, and they may have tried and fixed some of it, but they still had a trench. Just like if we have kids, we will still have a trench that we're fortifying our kids in. Whether we like it or not, it's just a part of humanity, right? You're going to fork them up because we're humans if you have kids. But we're in this trench. And it's inevitable in this process of trying to climb up out of the trench or to fill in the trench that we're going to slip down. In those moments where you're running away, shaming yourself, wagging that finger, we know where it comes from. We know why that is there. It's a part of you that's trying to protect you and parrot what words were used. Get the achievement of perfect, trying to strive for that worth. That love, always out of reach. Just like those goals you set thinking you're going to feel a certain way when we get there. We're starting to give ourselves the there feeling now, okay? That's what this is. Sure, it doesn't always feel like that, right? But in order to get the happy joy, you have to be willing to feel the pain and sorrow. It's all part of the same thing. It's all part of the beautiful tapestry, the chaos. So in the midst of me having these feelings and I'm in the midst of running away, I can catch myself being unkind to myself, right? And I can stop and I can say, thank you for trying to protect me. We don't need that right now. We're doing the best we can right now. We'll face the feelings when we can. It's just not right now. We don't have time. We don't have enough energy. Or maybe I say that as far as thank you for trying to protect ourselves. That's not the best way to go about it. And then I do things that I have found that help me when I'm dysregulated, when I'm trying to run away. Sitting outside. In the sunlight sometimes, not in the sunlight other times. But nature noises. In nature, breeze, seeing trees, seeing nature. Just being near it. I don't have to be like walking around in it. I don't have to be exerting energy. I can literally just be a blob, right? Like sometimes we have to be a blob. I can be a blob just like in proximity to the sounds and sights of nature. It helps me remember to take deep breaths. And the deep breaths tell my physical body that it's not actually in danger. Because when I start having the feelings, my body feels like it's in danger. Like any second, the consequence for having those feelings could be rained. And if I don't run away from them or suppress them fast enough, right? It isn't true right now, but it feels true because it was true, right? And then the habits are in place. So I sit outside and I take some deep breaths. I love journaling. It's as a person who struggles sometimes with focus, I do really well with something that pulls in my focus, a reason, right? I can focus here because I know I'm saying something that could help somebody else. So I can sit here and I can have this conversation like I'm having a conversation with you because I don't think about it as everybody hearing. I hear it as you, as a fellow person who's in the thick of it. Okay? So I can sit here and I can do that with that. And for myself, I do it with journaling because sometimes it can be so much and sometimes I want to just jump back into escaping. And so I'll write with a pen and I don't judge what I'm saying. I just write it. I write where I am. If I'm feeling more regulated than that, because sometimes it can be extremely like hand shaking, like irregular breathing. If I'm a little bit more regulated, I can place my hands on my chest and like ground myself by feeling my breaths in my belly or my heartbeat in my chest. And I can start noticing where I feel my feelings, right? Because feelings are physical. They affect your body. Like right now, when I'm thinking through these active feelings I've had, I currently feel at the top end of my stomach this like tight churn, almost like too much acid, like you're hungry but you've gone too far and you feel kind of like uneasy, like you need to eat a cracker before you can try to like eat anything else. I feel a light tension in the left side of my throat, on this side leading to my shoulder, but not my right. The right side of the back of my knee. And a little bit in my left shoulder, right? I've taken the time to really pay attention to and get used to trying to identify my body. I used to not be good at it. I used to be like, I don't know, kind of somewhere in the middle. But we all start at zero, right? So if you right now are feeling something and you can't identify it as clearly as that, totally fair, I couldn't either. This is years in the making of being able to do that. But if you sit and try, you'll slowly get better at noticing. Slowly get but surely but see. Another thing that used to help me in the beginning is identifying how it might feel as a color or shape. Like it feels like a black ball of wiggly worm things. You know what I'm talking about? Like that's like erratic and it's how it's moving and like pulsing almost. Or it might look like a pool, just like something like dropped a water balloon and just into a giant pool. Visuals, like I don't know what'll work for you, but for me, like identifying and trying to see and feel about the feeling, the tangibility of it. Not asking the why necessarily, but just sitting with it and allowing it to exist. That was where I started. Now I can sit with it in different ways. I can still do that. I can journal, but now sometimes in the same way that there's that inner bully, that critic, that's a part of you trying to help you, protect you. Our body naturally partitions itself when we're so used to disassociating. So when we push down our feelings, when we decide that somebody else's feelings matter more, when we put on a face, all of those things are like essentially cutting ourselves up. It's disassociating. It's saying, you're not valuable, you're just a cute case over there, we're gonna focus over here. These feelings, we're just pushing them aside. It's a separation of self, right? And we've done it for so long that it's almost like we've encased these like moments, these personhoods inside of ourselves, right? And so sometimes those personhoods, those memories, those things, have you ever been calm, right? And then you're around a person who reminds you of a parent, or you have a situation that makes you think of a childhood situation, and all of a sudden you go from being calm to being like agitated, right? It's a trigger. These triggers aren't just triggers of emotions, but they're triggers of like feelings, triggers of trap, triggers of actual events and lack of safety that you occurred, right? That occurred in your life. And so when we come across these moments in our life, we're brought back not only to what's happening here, because it may not actually be something that's actually dangerous. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it can be something that seems inconsequential, right? Spilled drink. Doesn't matter. We can clean it up, right? We know that it's just a spilled drink, but it's not just a spilled drink. What would happen when a drink was spilled when you were little? What were you processing and thinking about in the back of your head while you were disassociating, scrolling on your phone when it happened? Right? These triggers, these things, they bring us back to these moments, these parts of ourselves that we never allowed to be. We're little. We're told to stop crying. It seems like it's just not that much, right? Not stop crying. It wasn't like, stop crying or I'll beat you. Maybe it could have been, but like, could have just been a command. But as a kid, we can hear things with a lot more emphasis than intended. Or the implication of what we knew would happen if they didn't stop crying. And we suppress, we partition off that part of ourselves. And then something happens and it brings it back up. And in those moments, that person sits activated within us. That feeling that like we're back in the thick of it. And sure, we can push it down, ignore it, like we have in the past, but it still sits decaying within us and it will return. Versus if we can, when we can, how we can, with what we can. All grace, all understanding, because we're all in this, like what we can do, we can do. When we can't do it, it doesn't matter, right? When we can, and you start getting good about feeling what you're feeling when you're feeling it, you can then start parsing off whether that feeling is now you collective whole or just like a part. Is it about right now, or is the right now about something that happened before? I found that sometimes I can be feeling so much frustration at what's going on in my life. But that frustration isn't about me actually and right now, but about a part of myself. A part of myself that had to take on responsibility well before they ever needed to. Responsibility that was never mine. Feelings that I should have never had to manage. Circumstances I should have never had to protect. Right? And I can help and sit with and parent and be with that part of myself. What does that look like for me? One, I do therapy, and I find that to be extremely beneficial, and I know that's a privilege. A book that I would recommend, at least wetting your toes into this idea, is, I'm going to get it wrong, No Bad Parts. Can't remember the author. I will make sure to put it in the caption or in a comment. But it's IFS, is Inter-Family Systems or something like that. I'm going to say it wrong. I'm sorry. But it's the idea that when we're so used to dismissing ourselves, we partition different parts of ourselves like little fractures. And they are still us, but there's pieces of us that are like stuck in these moments. It's connected to the idea of EMDR, where you have these truths about yourself that you've accepted because of past, or ART therapy, where you have these memories that are locked in and hold tight in you for different, that are like brought up because of triggers, and decompressing and giving them that part of you, that piece, that memory, a different ending. Like, you can go about it in a lot of different ways and how you try to work on it. And honestly, for me, I have found that each one of them has helped in a different aspect or scenario. But anyway, so now I will sit with those parts and I'll just be with them like I would my kid or my friend, right? When you have a friend who's having a bad day, they don't want you to solve it. They're not a baby. They want you to sit there with them and be like, oh, I hate bad days. They just want someone to vibe with them for a second, be cathartic, and just sit with them. They don't need to have you, like, it doesn't have to be a whole vent. It just is like, yeah, I understand, and that sucks. Simple as that. Existence with empathy. That is all you need. So you can sit with yourself. I do that. I sit with myself, that part of me. You should have never had to have that responsibility. I'm so sorry. No wonder you're frustrated. It's frustrating. You shouldn't have had to take on those feelings. You shouldn't have had to partition off yourself. I'm sorry. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Other times it can be asking that part, how old do you think I am? For me, I've had parts be 3, 7, 17, 11, you name an age, I have it. And I show them the life that I lead. And I show them how I deal with my kids. And I show them how I'm protecting and taking care of us now, the collective. And I ask, what do you need? Right? That's a way that I help and deal with my process, my feelings now. Sometimes I'll go, if I'm dysregulated, other than just sitting outside, if I have more energy, I will take myself on a walk, slow. And I don't have a goal for the walk. I just kind of walk. Maybe it's meander my yard. Maybe it's meander my neighborhood. Maybe it's get in the car because I want to go to a park and meander for a little bit and then end up just sitting on a picnic table. And yes, all of this is with the privilege of trying to find time for myself. And sometimes it means I'm taking my kids to a park so they can play in a playground so I can have 30 seconds while they play. It's doing what you can when you can. Sometimes it's my body craves water a lot. So maybe it's I take a bath and I put on a song I like and I just sit. Feeling your feelings is a clunking experience when you first start, but it gets more intuitive the more you practice. That doesn't mean it's always going to be something you want to do. You're still going to have the amount of years you've had of trying to run away from your feelings. They're going to surface, right? But part of the process of getting to the place where you're prioritizing your inner voice is all the stupid human things. It's trying to pay attention to your body. Because I'm going to guess you on a regular basis don't realize when you're thirsty or hungry or need to use the restroom, right? Guess why? Because you were told over and over and over you weren't a priority. Your feelings weren't. Your needs weren't. Other people were. And so you accepted that truth. I want to emphatically tell you, you matter. Your needs matter. You matter. Your needs matter. You're worth the energy and effort. You are worth the energy and effort of paying attention to what your body needs. You're worth the work. You're worth every arduous step. If it took you 30 years to get to a place where you naturally know what your body needs and naturally can easily process feelings, you're worth 30 years of that process. Every drop of energy that exists, you're worth that affection. To prioritize your inner voice is doing the stupid human stuff. It's sitting with yourself. It's feeling your feelings. It's trying to listen to your body. It's showing up with love and compassion. No longer just parroting the process of being mean to yourself because that's what you're used to. It's catching that process and being like, I appreciate you're trying to love me. We're not doing that now. It's catching the process of when somebody else is having big feelings and you just, want to reject and run away. And so you want to diminish the other person's feelings because it's uncomfortable. Right? All up in here, like just, no. Stopping. And saying out loud the thing you needed to hear. It's okay. It's okay to feel. It won't be here forever. It's fair you feel. Fill in the blank. For me, saying the thing I needed to hear out loud helps me and helps my kid. If I have a kid, in your case, it might be a friend or I don't know. But it's paying attention to and congratulating yourself when you pay attention to the things that are happening in your brain, the things that are happening in your world. Where you ask questions. You're taking an action, right? I have been so guilty of this so many times. I'm taking an action that I like going to visit somebody, right? Or going to call somebody, or going to, like, making this choice, whatever this action is, right? And it's usually in relationship to another person. And my brain will be running ragged inside of itself, trying to justify the choice I made. Why? Because my default energy was to appease other people, because I feel uncomfortable, I feel unsafe with other people's discomfort. Why? It's completely fair, it's completely natural that I do, because I was unsafe. I was. When somebody else was uncomfortable, that meant my safety was in question. And so I took on people pleasing, not because, yay, I need them to be happy, but because, yay, I need to be safe. But I perpetuate that in this like constant need to like do sacrifice to fix that, because I get so uncomfortable with somebody else's discomfort. It's seeing that pattern and stopping and being like, okay, that's fair. Why? But is making that choice, defending that choice, showing up for me, showing up in the world in the way that I want to exist in. I went about the whole process of choosing what other people, what benefits them and helps them, to a point that I broke. It got us here, right? I was asking those questions and sitting with them. And sometimes it doesn't mean instantaneously changing your actions, but it's acknowledging, I chose something that wasn't aligned with the life I want to have. What will I do next time? It's creating boundaries, if-then statements for myself, first and foremost. Oh my goodness, for myself first and foremost. If you're a person who constantly self-abdicated to help other people, get rid of your own feelings to take on other people's feelings because of safety, because of whatever, if that, boundaries for yourself. Oh my goodness, boundaries for yourself. What does that look like? If I'm going to visit family, then I'm only going for this amount of time. If I'm going to family, then I'm going to practice emotional distancing. If I'm going to family, then I'm going to set up a therapy session directly afterwards. Like those are all examples of going to family, because family can trigger the feelings and whatever, right? But like, if I find that I'm staying up late and scrolling and disassociating, then test case. Then I will offer myself grace and love and compassion and care, because I don't need attack, right? Attack is what we live through. We know what that does. We can perpetuate that and live down that cycle. It doesn't help us. What have we not experienced? Love, right? That's what we want, okay? How we get there, how we gain that is us. It sounds so pretty. The lie that we've been told as women, if you're a woman, that there's a knight coming to save you. Oh, it sounds so simple. It sounds so lovely. Somebody else coming in, cleaning up the mess. But does it? If you're waiting on somebody else, guess what that means? You're stuck. You're stuck in the mire, stuck where you are, stuck with no hope, stuck with no means, stuck with no bounds, stuck with no anything. You are handcuffed. You are tied up and gagged for this other, this ambiguous other. No. It isn't as pretty. They painted it pretty. It's kind of like alcohol. No attacks if you drink alcohol. But we have this romantic view of alcohol and what it does. The science of alcohol is the more you drink alcohol, especially if like you have anxiety, guilty as charged, it actually scientifically raises your baseline anxiety levels. And even after you finish drinking, like long times after you finish drinking, your baseline anxiety is actually increased at the post. Like so during your time frame of being like euphoric and like affected, it's not there. It's when you're coming off of it. Your baseline anxiety is increased with each, right? That's insane. The effects on your person, your body are extremely negative. Cancer, all of that, right? Like there's a whole Huberman lab that goes for like 3 hours. I did a small version of it somewhere on like TikTok or something like that. If you don't want to watch the 2-hour thing that I watched, because it is really repetitive, but it's really informative. And there's a whole bunch of science that backs it up. But anyway, we have this romantic view, this romantic notion of what alcohol is because it's painted. Oh, it's painted. They do such a beautiful job. We want to have that joy. We want to have that ease. We want to have that social. We want that connection. We want that life, right? And so every commercial, every movie, they paint it so clearly. It's so integrated everywhere. But it isn't real. It isn't the truth. It feels like it. It feels like it because it's the instant like Pavlovian response, right? Candy tastes delicious, right? We love the way it feels in our mouth. But have you ever eaten candy until you got a headache? That's not awesome. Excuse me, that's not awesome. Have you ever eaten candy until you got a stomachache? Have you ever eaten candy like over the course of times and then all of a sudden started feeling like bloated and uncomfortable in your body? No attacks on candy. I like candy. Just instant is not always what we want. Often I have found the thing that gives me instantly something that makes my life easier in the long run makes my life harder. Someone coming to save you is a painted picture filled with handcuffs, bondage, captivity. When we reinstall the picture of truth, we get to fortify ourselves. We get to choose. We get to say we're enough. We get to show up for ourselves. We get to rescue ourselves, and we get to have an onus, a means, a path. We are not stuck. We can go the direction we want to go with our life. We don't have to wait for anything. We don't have to have the thing over there to feel the thing we want to feel right here. The path to changing the perspective of the voices and what you obey habitually in your head is not something that happens instantaneously. It's something like most things that stacks with 1%. Huge difference and huge change comes with tiny, tiny steps. I used to freak out, yell. I used to be triggered all over the place. I used to be completely depressed. I used to be a freaking yo-yo. Like a human emotional yo-yo. I now have my kids frustrated because of how calm I am. That even in a frustration, even in a big feeling, I can choose how I respond, how I show up. That doesn't mean I'm disassociating from the feeling. I can have the feeling, but then still talk with peace. Express myself, but in a means and a way to be heard and connect without attacking. Because I'm coming to the table with the understanding of how the other person is, because I have given myself the space and grace to take the deep breath to be able to see the perspective. That happened not because of some overnight, not because of some instantaneous 1 + 1 = 2 thing, but also because 1 + 1 = 2, because of 1% change. I learned a tiny thing. I started drinking water on a schedule. My body, I didn't know when I was thirsty until I was dying of thirst. So I started drinking. I need to have this cup done by this time. This cup done by this time. This cup done by this time, right? Because I couldn't tell and I couldn't listen to my body. So I started showing up with what I knew. Like a baby, I showed up because I knew they would need it, because I knew I would need it. I started peeing on a schedule because I didn't know when I needed to go bathroom until it was a dire I'm going to wet my pants situation. And through the process of showing up on the schedule with alarms, because I'm that insane and ADHD, that I started being able to see what my body needed. Tiny adjustments. When I would have a reaction to this big trigger that happened in my life, I required that I stop for a second and just like rest my hands and take one deep breath. I would still yell afterwards and have to apologize, but that one breath turned to two breaths. Those two breaths turned into two breaths, and then later on processing what I was feeling. Those two breaths and processing what I was feeling later turned into me being able to take two breaths and understand and have some space for me to have my feelings right then. Right? Slowly, tiny incremental changes. You are completely capable of doing a tiny 1% change. You dismiss it because it feels like nothing, but that nothing, those nothings add up. I was depressed, a freaking human yo-yo, freaking out all the time. To now where I am, not because of some miraculous thing, but because every day I did some tiny little thing. And some days I was worse than the previous day. It isn't like this perfect little line. It's like a freaking loop-de-loop roller coaster. Only you don't end back where you started. Hopefully. So far. But you start prioritizing your inner voice by prioritizing your inner voice. I know that sounds like I'm saying the same thing, because I am. You do it by showing up for yourself. You do it by saying, okay, this is what I need. You do it by hearing what's happening in your head and saying, is that true? You're pushing yourself to be perfect. Is that true? Is perfection ever what is needed? Or is it something that's impossible that I put up for myself as a self-protection so that I could bully myself before someone else attacked me, trying to keep myself safe? I'm the worst. Are you the worst, or are you just being human? You're saying you're the worst again, trying to protect yourself, trying to tweak yourself, trying to create safety for yourself. That's fair. That's reasonable. You start prioritizing yourself by listening to your body doing human stuff, by listening to those words and understanding with compassion, grace, and love, accepting them and saying, you know what, I love you too. Even with you attacking me, I love you too, because I know what you're trying to do. I know what your heart is. Your heart was you wanted to be loved, and you're trying to make sure we're safe. And I love that. Let's just go about it a different way. And you do it, and it's painful. But those painful little things that you have to feel and be, every time you have this great pain, I want to give you a gift in understanding that because you have a depth of pain that you've experienced, you get to have a heightened amount of joy. A scope you can't even kind of understand. It's kind of like every teenager goes through life and they're like, you just don't understand, right? And anybody who's lived through being a teenager is like, oh my gosh, yeah, I don't understand. No, for sure. I couldn't possibly have lived through that because I never went through these years. We get a scope of understanding through experience. Feelings are the same way. And no, we don't want the super painful side, but man, do we like that joy side? And it's all a part of the same experience, and every experience we go through, as much as it stinks or is great, it'll pass, and not in a dismissive way, because it never feels like it's going to pass when in the midst of the hardship. But it is a beautiful truth. Think about all the hardships you've had in your life. The depth of joy that you can feel. You already went through all those bad things. That already happened, right? You already felt them, and you've been feeling them, suppressing and feeling them for years. Gonna guess you've got some bodily issues, like autoimmune problems, digestive issues, headaches. I'm gonna guess. No idea why. You've already been feeling them, suppressing them, and they've been decaying within you. Now you get to simply let them come into the light, like a shadow faces light and it dissipates. And with each time There'll be some drain, but there'll be such peace. And with each time you allow those full experiences, when you have joy, you allow the full experience. All these years you've been suppressing your feelings. I bet you money when something good happened, you'd start thinking about what bad things would happen with it. You get a raise, oh, what's going to happen next? I'm going to have a big car accident. Right? Fear-mongering about potential because we're so uncomfortable with feeling. When we start getting comfortable with feeling, we can start really getting comfortable with all the feelings and fully experience. That thing over there that you feel like is going to get you something, you can't actually ever feel it, even if you got those things, until you're willing to feel it. Get comfy in getting to know you. You get to date you. You get to experience you. And you are worth experiencing and dating. Sitting in and with, figuring out what works. You have bent over backwards and have been an amazing person to be in a partner relationship with before. I can bet you money. You're just now going to be showing up in that same energy for yourself. You deserve that. You're worth that. You start being able to prioritize your voice when you start prioritizing you. Start small. 1%. Start where you can. I'm not sure what that looks like for you. For me, it looked like chaos. I started my process by deciding in the same perfectionist mentality, I will grit my teeth and I will turn into the storm and I will type A personality, conquer this healing. That's where it started. I walked into my first therapy session with, okay, I have 8 weeks. These are the 8 weeks of topics that I know we need to discuss, and we're just going to plow through these, and we're going to heal each one each week. My body will participate. I will make sure to do all, different tasks you tell me to do for coping mechanisms. So I would have conquered each one of these in this. Okay. We all start at 0. Okay. I'm not sure where you'll be in that process, but we all start with 0 and it's okay. The fact that you can see and hear and know that you don't want that negative parroting in your head. Wow. Huge. Amazing. Now just come to the table with grace. Now come to the table with willing to sit with that part of you. See how they feel. Sit with you and how you feel about how they feel. Sit with your mind and just let it run for a minute. As terrifying as it is, as much as it could be negative, just letting it peter out. I know it feels like your brain is never going to stop. I know. It feels like it's never going to stop. Why do you feel like your brain feels like it needs to never stop? Because it's constantly trying to run. It's constantly trying to grasp the enough. You already are enough. And now we're just showing you by taking the actions.